Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Seitz. I'm the Director for Hardin County Animal Services in Hardin County, Tennessee. Today we have Rachel Lees with us. She's a veterinary behavior technician at the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. She is an elite fear-free professional, is on the Fear-Free Speakers Bureau, and is an active member of the Fear-Free Advisory Panel. To learn more about Rachel, please check out her bio under the Speakers tab. Today she will be talking to us about using positive reinforcement in the shelter setting. Everyone, please welcome Rachel. All questions can be typed into the chat. When she's ready to take some, we'll go through some, but most of them will be held towards the end. But please feel free to type them in the chat box.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I am super excited about being here today. Thank you for coming and for listening and wanting to hear some fun stuff about behavior. Obviously, I find behavior very, very interesting. So I'm really excited that I was asked to speak and that I can be here today to help you guys. So the lecture today is, I kind of called it Click This because we'll talk a little bit about what actually clicker training is, but really I want us to think that it's not only about using a clicker, it's about using positive reinforcement and what we can do to help make sure that our patient, or I say patients, the animals that are in the care of the rescue or the shelter at the time that they're there, we do what we can to keep them the most comfortable. I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about how to create ways that we can set these animals up for success. So when they go into a home, they're less likely to be returned and they can stay in the homes forever. And also with this, I try to think of it as a way that we're also able to hopefully reduce the amount of euthanasia we see from behavior, as behavior is one of the biggest reasons we see these things. So jumping in, so behavior and shelter medicine. Our goal of this, as I just mentioned, we want to do whatever we can to decrease behavioral stress. And our goal is to aid, and again, essentially our goal is to decrease the stress, sorry guys. And our goal is to make it this way so we have a lot more positives that can come out of it. So this means we want to see reduction of disease and illness. And I think that this is important to remember is that when you are super stressed, there's been a lot of studies that prove this, but when you are stressed, it increases the amount in which you're kind of a little bit more easier to get sick. And again, this is something where, again, it can affect your heart, it can affect your weight. I know I am a person that when I am stressed and uncomfortable and I have my own things, I'm a binge eater. Like I fluctuate my weight so much sometimes because of the fact like, I'm happy, I'm going to go fast. I fast for a week and then I lose some weight and then, I get myself upset about something or I'm really stressed because I have a lot of lectures I'm preparing for. And now I'm going to eat McDonald's every day and have a McFlurry. So that's again, where it just leads us to more challenging diseases that we may see within the shelter as well. Obviously, if we can focus on behavior, this can increase the adoption rates. As we all do, we want to save all the pets that we can. So again, if we can start to implement some positives and really kind of think about behavior within the shelter, I think that can really be helpful in making sure that we can get more pets adopted out. And again, they're going to be adopted out more because they're going to be more comfortable while they're in the stay of the shelter or the rescue. Our next one is kind of improving relationships with the public, volunteers, the staff, and any professionals that work with them and any potential adopters. I know as much as we all love animals, we all have bad days and we all have days where some you're like, there's no way I can deal with this dog today. He's a jumper. He's super wild and he has a lot of again, there's a lot that he needs, but he's a really great dog. So that's where, again, I feel like if we can keep in mind and I can hopefully give you some tools, we can see a lot less of that. And hopefully you guys can be able to get some of these animals, especially the more troubled ones, on the right path. So then that way they can get adopted and hopefully stay in their homes forever. I want to improve the overall welfare of our pets. I mean, again, if we're not thinking about behavior, again, like, and this isn't, I think dogs, everybody does a really great job. And we do whatever we can. But cats are one that even when they're in different situations, again, sometimes we forget to put in places for them to allow them to hide, or if it's in a cat building where they have a lot of different cats, we want to make sure that they have lots of different elevations for them to go up to, so we can, again, if they are a cat who's maybe not super comfortable with some of the other cats in the room, they have a place they can go where they can feel safe. And obviously our goal is to decrease euthanasia. Behavior is, again, usually the #1 reason that animals are returned. And sometimes, again, depending on the case, maybe the dog was fearful, maybe the dog had bitten somebody, or else, again, the dog has separation related issues. All of these things can definitely lead to euthanasia. So our goal is to try to hopefully keep an eye on some of these things and do what we can to place these dogs in the right homes, and get them as comfortable as possible while they're there, so we can decrease that rate of euthanasia. So I kind of talked a little bit about this already, but our overview and goals for the lecture today are understanding why behavior is important in every shelter. So that's a big one. We're going to make sure we hit home. Understand the common terms associated with animal training. So this is one thing that is Ken Ramirez, and I want to say he's now the CEO of Karen Pryor Academy, which I am a Karen Pryor certified training partner as well. So Karen Pryor Academy is, I don't think that if you're going to do any type of animal training, I would absolutely recommend you do that. They also have a ton of programs if you are interested and want to do some further things. But he had a lecture once that was kind of like, okay, well, what do you define this term as? So again, in veterinary behavior medicine, I may define it differently than how an animal trainer may define it, or how somebody else may define it. So I really want everybody, because again, I hear the term negative reinforcement used all the time, and that's not how it's being used. Like, they're saying that it's something that's like not pleasant, and which again, it can be, but it's not being used in the right term. It's not being used in the right manner. So again, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with those things. So if somebody mentions this stuff to you, you know what exactly they're talking about. Grasp the basics of training using positive reinforcement and clicker. Again, I want you guys to feel a little comfortable. I cannot in a 50-minute lecture get you in and out feeling like you guys are amazing certified clicker trainers. That's not going to happen. But I'm hoping that this lecture can hopefully open your eyes and maybe get you a little bit more interested in learning more. And even if there's something you can take home and start implementing in your shelter, I would be happy. That's my goal. And then again, understand what everyone handling each pet can do to create a positive response for everybody and positive behaviors long-term. So learning in animals. So this is where we start. Okay, so even if we're going to talk about animal training, we have to think, how does an animal learn? So we typically animals learn using, I always think of like cause and effect, right? So that's essentially operant conditioning. That is learning in which a behavior is affected by its consequence. So for example, what's a good one? I'm trying to think, like, these are not hard, but like, so say for example, I don't know, I smiled at somebody, all right, like something as silly as that. And to me, now this is reinforcing, but again, I smile at somebody and maybe the person I was looking at was looking down and seemed to have a bad day. They smiled back. That is something that again is reinforcing. And again, that behavior of me smiling and that person smiling back at me makes me feel much more comfortable and happy. So I'm most likely going to respond and do that behavior again. Now, again, there are situations in which the consequence may not be so pleasant, but again, that's kind of an example of how that learning happens. And again, we associate performing a specific behavior with some sort of benefit or aversive event. So just kind of like how I said, to me, the smiling would be a benefit. Again, an aversive might be, if say you don't want me to talk and you put a don't know, you put a little shock collar or something on my arm. And every time I speak, you zap me, I might start to go, okay, well, I'm not going to talk, or else I'm going to try to figure out what it is you want me to not do. So again, I'm going to hopefully learn from that situation. So again, these are just a few different things and a few different ways I feel like you can say it. But again, when a behavior is followed by something the animal wants, the behavior will likely strengthen. And when a behavior is followed by something the animal dislikes or fears, the behavior is most likely going to weaken. So again, looking at this, that's kind of where we head into our 4 quadrants of learning, which are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And I tried to put in, I like this picture. It's actually depicts things in a pretty, good way. Some of these pictures and the way that they say it makes it so confusing for me. And I don't know, I'm an overthinker, so that could be part of the problem. But so again, you see here the plus R is positive reinforcement. So again, we're adding something good. And then as the behavior happens, negative punishment is we're taking it away to make the behavior stop. Positive punishment is we add something to essentially eliminate the unpleasant or bad behavior. Negative reinforcement, we're taking something away to make a behavior increase. So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So even me saying that out loud, I have to think of it this way. So this is where I totally joke with this though. And even if I'm working with a VTS, another technician who's working towards their specialty certification, or I'm talking to anybody, I will write down exactly what I put here on the slide. So out of those 4 quadrants of learning, you're going to want to use 2 that are more likely, that are going to be most helpful and that are recommended essentially by science at this point. Now, again, I say this with animals. Learning can happen in any way. Punishment works, again, in some situations, and negative reinforcement works. These are the most, I guess I would say, the most positive ways that we can work to create a less stressful environment and a less for our animals that we're working with and our learners. So positive reinforcement. So I want you to think of the definition of positive as you're adding something. That's all positive is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's you're adding something to the situation. That's it. And then reinforcement is you are decreasing the likelihood of a behavior. Or I said increasing the likelihood of a behavior. So again, when we reinforce, that's something that we want to have happen again. We want that behavior to strengthen. So a good example of that would be giving a dog a treat when their rear ends touch the ground. So butt hits floor, we give a treat. So again, as that rear end hit the floor, we added a treat to the situation to increase the likelihood of the behavior of sit happening again. Now, negative punishment is when you are subtracting something. So negative is not bad. It's taking something away. You are removing something from the situation. And then punishment is decreasing the likelihood of a behavior. So an example of this would be turning your body away to a dog who is jumping. I'm sorry, Hal is jumping. I can proofread these slides to the day I die, and I will always go through and I'm like, I'm sorry, I apologize. So again, our goal is in that situation, the animal is motivated and wants attention. So I even found I thought it was a pretty good picture. So like, again, you see the dog pawing and it's all, hi, 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 hi. And what would be the best way to help eliminate this behavior would be you take away your attention. So again, the dog wants your interaction. They want to, that's what they're motivated by, that social interaction with you, the human. So if we take that away, so we're taking that away and we're taking it away as the kind of attention seeking, jumping, all that behavior is happening, the animal over time should learn that jumping takes the attention away. And then again, what we can do inadvertently is use positive reinforcement to reinforce behavior that we enjoy. So again, before the animal starts to jump, we may add in some reinforcement or ask them to sit. So again, that is an example of positive reinforcement and negative punishment. And again, I am happy to answer questions as we get towards the end. I just want to make sure I get through my slides. I really do my best. I bet you guys can tell I'm kind of chatty, so I try to stay on time. So some of the non-recommended training methods that, again, are not typically recommended by the veterinary behavior community. And again, how can I say this? Again, as I said before, these things work. And it's not that they're horrible or that they're, you know, and again, and in some situations, I've seen veterinary behaviorists reach for one of these methods, but it's never our first go-to because of some of the backside you'll see with it. So I'm going to go into that in a few more slides. But positive punishment. So again, breaking it down, we're adding something, and then punishment is decreasing the likelihood of a behavior. So say, for example, the dog has an e-collar on and it's jumping up. And every time it jumps up, we add the zap. So again, you're adding the zap as the dog's jumping. So if the dog finds the zap aversive or punish, again, not comfortable, they would hopefully start to learn, okay, jumping is going to add that in. So I don't want to do that behavior again. Now, negative reinforcement is, again, we're taking something away to increase the likelihood of the behavior. So this happens with like things like and that's why I said, you know, we use this, and these things are used sometimes even when we don't think about it. So like, for example, I know as a veterinary behavior technician, I recommend the uses of head collars all the time and body harnesses. And sometimes those do use negative reinforcement. Now, again, it's using negative reinforcement to a point where it's not injuring the animal. But again, and that's sometimes where, as we get more and more in depth with these things, and the animal may not, again, for a gentle leader, for example, or head collar, most people are familiar with that. If the animal pulls forward, it tightens around their snout. So it's uncomfortable, but again, it's uncomfortable. It's not harming them in any way, right? But then what happens is as they walk or they stop pulling, the pressure is removed. So the behavior of walking next to you and not pulling is reinforced because, again, it's more comfortable that way, right? So again, negative reinforcement is used in a lot of different ways. I mean, again, it's used on a daily basis. Another example of negative reinforcement is where, like, think of the mail person or the delivery person every day. So especially if you're an Amazon Prime person, anytime the Amazon truck or like a mail truck or the UPS truck, any FedEx, they pull up, most dogs hear that sound and they're like, oh my God, here we go. Run to the doors. They start barking out the windows and they're like, okay, great. I'm going to bark, 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 bark. So this behavior is happening because, again, maybe they're territorial, maybe they're uncomfortable, maybe they're fearful. But every day this person comes to their house, they bark, but they don't understand that the person is dropping off mail and leaving. The behavior of barking is negatively reinforced because every day the barking happens, the person walks away. So the behavior of barking is repeated, and again, it increases the likelihood it's going to continue to happen. So this is just, again, another example of how some of this stuff is going to happen with or without our approval. But a lot of the times I really do want you guys to kind of go like, okay, if I have a choice on how this animal is going to learn something, we really want to try to use our positive reinforcement and our negative punishment. So again, our benefits of positive reinforcement are that it enhances the human animal bond. I mean, again, that's the basis of what I feel we all do. We all love animals. We wouldn't be in this industry, in this profession, or in anything if we didn't love animals, right? So again, and if we can enhance the human animal bond, it's going to keep animals in homes longer. And again, that's why I do what I do. Yes, I love animals and I love pets. Do not get me wrong. And I love every pet that walks into our building. But I also love the owners. Like I learned to love, I'm a people person, but again, I want these owners to have the best and the most enjoyable time with their pet that they can while their pet is on this earth. Again, that's how I think of it. I truly want people to enjoy their animals, and I don't know, kind of making my heart like get all full. I'm like, okay, I got to stop talking about that. I'm not going to cry in the middle of my lecture, Rachel. But I really do. That is something that is important to me. So that's why I really like positive reinforcement, because that is something that you're going to see. Because again, you're not creating any conflict. It's fun for you and fun for the animal. And again, we're creating a good interaction. It tells the animal what to do instead of what they're doing wrong. So think about it like this. Anytime we think about, I mean, let's be honest, in any of our lives, how many times do people look at you and say, wow, great job. That was a great appointment, Rachel, or that was a great, you know what, Alexis, you spoke to that owner really great. And that was fantastic. No, that doesn't happen as often as we'd all like it to, right? So I want us to think about reinforcing the animal for what we like. And then again, because then what we're able to do is we're able to tell them what we want. And we're able to do that by specifically reinforcing very specific behavior using like the clicker. And I do, and sometimes I sound really corny, but like, again, I think of clicker training as your means of communication. That's you saying, yes, that's what I want. Yes, that's what I want. And we're able to do that. And as we continue to do that, the animal is going to start to learn, oh, okay, when I do this behavior, this gets like, Rachel smiles, she gets excited, she gets the high pitchy stuff, I get a treat. This is all super great. So I'm going to do this behavior more often because maybe the jumping doesn't work. I always think owners of any age can train with this technique too. I mean, again, unfortunately, if you're using things like positive punishment, or, you have your dog on a prong collar, that's a little bit more aversive. You do not want your 5-year-old walking the dog on a prong collar. It's not going to go well. And it's just not safe. And also the child can't really do the correction that the animal would most likely need in that context. So again, that's where anybody can do this. And kids love this stuff. And even if you're an older adult that, again, you just, you're in a retirement community, you just got a new pet, they can do this. It doesn't have to be, this strong muscular person that's going to manhandle the dog. That is not the way that this has to work. And the biggest thing of benefit is that it decreases fear, anxiety, and frustration and stress. I mean, when you use other different forms of training, that's what we're doing, is we're increasing fear and anxiety. So that acronym FAS is called, it's fear, stress, and anxiety. Fear, anxiety, stress. Jeez. But again, you can see here, I put a few examples, but like even here, I also, that's why I put this in here. But again, you can see that, there's more long-term learning. Animals have actually been shown that they can bring up behaviors that have been taught with positive reinforcement quicker than the ones that were taught with negative reinforcement, or negative reinforcement, or any type of positive punishment. So, okay. So here I have this, look at that Danny, what a goober. So the ugly truth about punishment and aversives. So this is the one thing of where, again, I talk a little bit about the fact that they work. They do. And I can't, when I have a client that comes in that tells me that these things work, or and not that they're trying to prove me wrong, but, some people do get confrontational when you bring this up. And that's the thing that I feel like you may see a lot of the times in a shelter setting, is a lot of people, I'm trying to tread lightly, but like a lot of people feel like they know what is right and that what they have done for years is correct. And behavior and learning and science changes every day. So we're always advancing. We're always learning. So with that being said, yeah, some of this stuff in the past, I agree. My dad used it on dogs that we had growing up for when I was a kid, we used a prong collar and we used a lot of these other things. And, again, our dog at the time did great. But also I feel like we see a lot more anxiety in pets than we used to. And a lot of these things can just help make them even more stressed, which can cause even more behavior problems. So in order for punishment or using any type of aversive to work, we need to make sure that the animal's motivation and strength is not too high. So again, I think of it more or less, the stronger the motivation to perform a behavior, the less likely punishment is going to work. So this is a stunning example, and I joke, but this is actually serious. So in high school, thank you, like you're 16, 17. My sister and I, we got into our fair share of things. I'm older, my sister's 2 years younger. So when I was, 16, if I went out to a party and I came home and I was, I had a few drinks and my parents could tell, I got yelled at, and then I wouldn't do it again, or else I would do it, but I was smart and I didn't come home. Or like, again, I learned my lesson. I was going to make sure that either I could control myself or else I wasn't going to come home. Now, my younger sister, them yelling at her made zero difference. She didn't care. It wasn't punishing enough. It didn't decrease the likelihood of the behavior. So with me, because I'm a person that I really don't like when people are mad at me. I hate conflict. It's one of those things that really bothers me as an individual. So even since I've been a little kid, if I can tell somebody's mad at me, it tears me apart. I hate it. So that's something where, again, so getting yelled at and having somebody feel disappointed in me, that's punishing. Now, again, for my sister, not that I'm saying she's a jerk, like she does have feelings, for heaven's sakes, but she's much less likely, that's a lot less punishing for her. She's like, I'll look over it, it's fine. So I even remember this one time, because I was older at this point, and I remember my sister coming home, my dad's like literally she got ungrounded that night. My dad's like, I don't know what to do anymore because you don't care. Like, what do we do? Just let you go? So that's the thing, is that the stronger the motivation, she loved going out and having drinks with her friends and going to high school parties. Like, that was what she enjoyed to do. So it didn't matter what the punisher was in that situation. Now, the other challenge that I think we see a lot of the time in animal training is that it needs to occur every time the behavior occurs. So if you're going to use punishment, so say you have a cat who's jumping on the counter and the owner's like, well, oh yeah, I know how to solve that problem. I, bring out my water bottle and I squirt him. Great. So what happens when you're not home? Because then what happens is owners start to get really frustrated and they go, well, the cat's doing it when I'm not there. It's like, well, yeah, because you're not punishing it every time the behavior is happening. There's still times where the animal's doing it and performing it and practicing it. So again, we need to make sure that that punisher is also happening within seconds of the behavior occurring. If again, so this is like, I think of the puppy who peed in the house, which is as an example that, again, and I'm sure a lot of us, who have worked in shelters or who've had a history in general practice or anything of that nature, you hear it all, right? Like, oh, I take, I tell people, take their, or I've had a client, like I walked my dog over there, I shoved its face in it. Like, okay, like number one, I get it, you're frustrated, but that's not going to help you. That's not going to help anybody. Now to us, maybe it makes sense, right? Because we're angry, we're showing them like, hey, this is the thing that we're mad about. But unfortunately, all the animal knows in that situation is that pee plus people equals scary, all in the same space. So, and especially if the owner was gone, if the puppy, like, so say you were washing your hands and you turned your back for a second, puppy runs into the bedroom, pees, you missed it. And it was like 10 minutes later and you walk in and you find it. That's not the time to punish. That ship's gone. At that moment, you just have to clean it up and go, okay, how can I manage the situation better? Because again, the punishment needs to happen within a few seconds. Otherwise, the animal pairs the aversive, so like yelling or something, again, whatever the punisher may be, with a totally different context. And again, kind of like the top, it has to be the proper intensity. Is that humane? So I also feel like if you are doing something and it doesn't, and the behavior doesn't change after 3 or 4 times of trying it, it's not working. So I've seen people use, electronic collars, shock collars and things. Like I've seen dogs that are on invisible fence collars and they don't, and not that I'm saying that they don't work. The shock is not punishing enough to that dog. And the owner will go, I don't know. I have it up to the highest amount. And I don't know how high some of these things go, but number one, invisible fences, I understand them. I'm not totally opposed to them because I understand in some situations you can't have a fence. But again, what that's going to do is the animal, again, learns that, okay, well, we like to think, all right, animal goes to the boundary of the property. And if they go too far, they get a shock. We add the shock in, and then again, they're going to make the right choice of moving back into the yard. Now, again, if the animal is, say, they see a squirrel, or I don't know, my dog, it would be a cat. It would be a squirrel too, let's be real. But if he saw something, I don't care. He wouldn't care what the heck was happening to him. He would just dart off and go. And I've seen some of these shock collars get really, really high. So to me, it's not worth it. It's not safe. It's just, again, because if the dog's not stopping, we're just shocking them for no reason, and we're just harming them for no reason. The goal is that, again, it's going to interrupt the behavior right after the application and stop the behavior. That's what it should do. And then after 3 or 4 repetitions, if you're using a punisher, the behavior should cease to exist. If it still exists, your punishment isn't working. Timing, again, we said this already, within 0.5 seconds, you need to be getting that punisher in within 0.5 seconds of the behavior happening, which again, we're humans. We're not super consistent about that all the time. And again, it does not teach an alternative behavior. It just tells them what not to do. So I think of that where, unfortunately, and I've been in some situations, whether it's work environments, friendship environments, anything, where you always feel like you're walking on eggshells and everything you do, you get in trouble for. But nobody tells you what you're supposed to do right, or like what you're doing right. Like, so say, for example, you're just in this really toxic work related environment and it doesn't, again, maybe you get no reinforcement for when you do something correctly, but, and then every time you do something wrong, you're yelled at, you're written up, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. At some point you just go, I can't do anything right. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm just going to shut down. And that's not fun. I know none of us in this if you're sitting in this lecture, I know that that's not something that you want. You do not want animals to shut down. So again, this is, I preach, I feel like sometimes in this lecture, I preach to the choir, but it's more or less, I want you guys to feel well educated. So when these animals potentially do go to a home, or if you have that volunteer that's having a really hard time stepping away from using aversives and punishment, we can talk to them about different ways of how it can be harmful to the animal long-term and actually increase stress and anxiety. And as I mentioned, these techniques are very confrontational and again, increase stress and anxiety for the pet and the owner. I know I've heard some great, you guys have no idea the stories I've heard over the years. And I am not, people do what they're told and it's not fun. I've had people that left dog training classes crying because they felt like they had shocked their dog too hard because their dog screamed, but the trainer kept telling them to do it. It's sad. And these things do happen. And there are trainers out there like that. And people really do take your recommendations. So please, 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 please recommend and work with trainers that you guys believe in and that you believe in their methods. And you're going to, and again, when these dogs go to the homes, give them these trainers information and tell them why you recommend them. Again, it's important and it can potentially, and even again, we're happy the dog's going to a home, correct? But we want the dog to live a nice, long, happy, healthy life with those owners. And setting them up with a positive punishment trainer and board and trains are not going to be helpful in that situation. So stepping away from reverses a bit, but jumping into another situation we hear a lot about, which is, joining the pack. We want a dog, they're going to join our pack, but I'm going to make sure I'm alpha. You can tell I get really frustrated about this. This is a whole lecture that I get to be on my soapbox, so I get excited about it, I guess. But dominance theory is essentially interpretive miscommunication. That is what it is. These studies were based on, this theory is based on studies that were done in the 1940s. Dogs, essentially, at this point, they said dogs have social hierarchies comparable to wolves. And at this point, they started to say that human families can replace the dog pack, and the dog will try to gain the top position or become alpha over the human family members. And then it'll show aggression to the lower people on the totem pole. So there are quite a few different flaws and concerns, but original research was with captive, unrelated wolves. So we all know that when animals are in captivity, they perform behaviors that are not normal. I mean, you go to a zoo and you can see it. Even if you do the best, which again, zoos do their darndest to make sure that these animals are well enriched. But again, they're still going to do behaviors that they do not do in the wild. So again, it was done with captive, unrelated wolves. We jumped to conclusions and essentially ignored 15,000 years of evolutions between dogs and wolves. So I say this, and I say this kindly, and I have the picture of the monkey to the human here, because Dr. Ian Dunbar, who is another wonderful individual who has been a great person within the behavior world, he was talking about this once years ago, and he said that if you are going to compare dogs to wolves, that's like comparing us to monkeys. And if a monkey throws stool at the baby because of something, are we going to do that? No, we'd go, that's not logical. There's this. Again, but that's the exact interpretation that happens from wolves to dogs. They are not the same thing. Yes, they look alike, but they are not the same thing. They are not the same species. Oops. Researchers have observed that dominance displays were ritualistic and that the wolves were doing these behaviors to decrease conflict, I believe. To avoid conflict. Yeah, I just want to make sure I said it correctly. And that's the thing, is that you will see things like, you see the submissive, when they're interacting together. And this wasn't, and let me say this as well. These were wolves interacting with other wolves. This had nothing to do with wolves interacting with humans either, this research. So again, they started to do the appeasement gesturings, like, okay, keeling over their side, like take my keys, take my wallet, showing their stomachs, all those things. And again, the wolves would start to do some sort of, hard stare or things like that. But again, it was because maybe they were resource guarding something. It was something completely different, and it was completely misinterpreted. And I will tell you, David Meck, who did the original research, he had to go back and in Scientific American and say, I was wrong. But again, you still have dog trainers out there that recommend these things and that support trainers who use these types of techniques. And I'm not trying to pick apart Caesar. I know I have this picture up here, but it's more or less, it's hard to find a picture of dominance theory without seeing him. But again, you can see, so the truth about dominance is, and what even veterinary behaviorists started to see after this was being used more often, is it damages the human animal bond. It increases anxiety in the pet, and it increases aggression to the owners. So again, you have a dog who's growling at you because they're fearful in a situation. So let's say, you go to wipe your dog's feet off, okay? and the dog growls at you. And you go, okay, no, I'm going to do it. And so I'm going to flip you on your side. Well, that just made them that much more nervous, number one, and probably made them that much more angry, in which they're probably going to aggress you even more now. And again, that just ruins your bond with your dog. And I'm not the first one to say it either. My dad, I joke around about this. My parents used to have a Newfie. Okay. And that was why I got into behavior. But long story short, he was a puppy. He's probably like 5-6 months this time. Okay. He's jumping around in the backyard. My dad's picking up dog poop. And Yogi starts jumping and, kind of jumping on his back. And my dad, was a big advocate of certain, trainers. And so he runs over and starts to try to pin him down. And the dog's face, number one, cracked me up because he's just like he looks so conflicted. And all he did, like my dad would be like, calm down, walk away. And Yogi would jump right back up and do the same thing again. Like it did not. And if anything, it made him more conflicted because he's like, Dad, why are you doing this? This is super uncomfortable. Again, I am an Ohio native. So I just moved to Knoxville from Ohio. So Dr. Heron, I'm always really proud of my Dr. Heron. She was the veterinary behaviorist at Ohio State. I will always be in a Buckeye at heart, but I do love the Vols. I will say that. But confrontational methods, she did a study when she was in her residency, and she actually had proven that confrontational methods applied by dog owners before their pets were presented by behavior consultation were associated with aggressive responses. So each time that they saw a case, most of the times it was because of the fact that there was a lot of dominance theory used. Confrontational methods. Okay, thanks. Confrontational methods such as hitting, kicking, alpha rolling, they all increased aggression with the owner. So again, things that we don't want to do. These are things that are going to cause more harm than good. So again, I just have a little bit here. Again, dog training theories, again, old fashioned is the alpha. We have our new modern force-free theory. Billy Chin always has some cool stuff. So I'm going to try and kind of speed through stuff because again, I talk too much. I apologize. So using a fear-free approach to shelter behavior. This is something I wanted to at least make sure I mentioned because I don't have an opportunity, I feel, to talk to shelters a lot. I am a fear-free speaker, and I truly believe in the fear-free veterinary movement, but I love that Fear-Free did put out a free to all shelter staff, DVMs, technicians, volunteers, anybody that is associated with the shelter. You are welcome to do the Fear-Free shelter program for free. And I feel like this is something that every shelter should truly take advantage of. Why not? It's not saying that you have to redo everything in your shelter to make it fear-free, but you may come out of it with some tips or some ways that maybe you can start implementing, a training program, or how can we help to reduce the stress of these pets in these situations? Because again, if we can improve the emotional experiences in shelters, we're going to reduce fear, stress, and anxiety. We're going to reduce frustration and make them more adaptable. So there's a lot of really awesome resources here where, again, they go through different body language. I think the body language in this is enough of a reason to go through it. I will be completely honest with you. I did it myself, and I've done the fear-free veterinary professional one as well. And the shelter one, I love. I can't say enough good things about the body language. So please, I highly recommend you do it. If you have questions, I'm going to leave my email at the end, but also you're welcome to reach out to WAGS, WAGS at fearfree.com. And Stephanie Bachman is the customer care representative. She's awesome and she's amazing. So if you have questions or you sign in and you have an issue, you're trying to sign in, you can't register, please contact her. She is happy to help you. So clickers, treats, and praise. Oh my. So again, when we're using our clicker becomes a conditioned reinforcer. So what the conditioned reinforcer means is I have the picture of the dog and the Pavlov stuff below. So again, kind of going back to our schooling days, we think about Pavlov, and he was the scientist who had the study where he would ring the bell and give dogs food. Now, over time, the dogs would hear the bell and they'd actually just start to salivate. So it was super awesome. Like we figured out learning can happen in just a few simple repetitions, number one, but also the animal started to predict when it was going to happen. So we use this same training when we think about using a clicker. So the click is going to positively reinforce that specific slice of behavior you're looking at. So again, we can look at a ton of different types of reinforcers. Again, there's, we have food, play, praise, different life rewards, which I think are huge. But again, a reinforcer is something that's flexible, that's going to increase the likelihood of the behavior to happen again. So for example, like I have the picture up here. This is Sophia Yin, stuff from her, God bless her soul. She did a lot of stuff with the Learn to Earn program is what we used to call it. But again, where, maybe before the food bowl comes down, you wait for your dog to sit or you ask them to sit. And when their butt hits the floor, I would add in a click, food down. And over time, they'll start to learn, okay, I need to sit in order to get things, or I need to do this in order to do things. Just teaches them I think of it like we're teaching them manners. When doing clicker training, there's a lot of, and I want to make sure I give you guys a copy of my slides. I will ask the powers that be how I can make that happen. And I know I did give you some stuff on the proceedings more about dominance and all that jazz too, so you guys are welcome to read that. But again, the human clicker mechanics and considerations to think, again, if you're using a clicker, you want to click first and then treat. If you are clicking and trying to get your treat out all at the same time, the dog's not learning. The dog's going food. It's like me at a restaurant when I see the server coming out with that, after about 15 minutes after they took my order. I'm not listening to anything that anybody's saying. I'm going, is that my food? So again, you want to make sure that you click first, then you move your treat. Treat hand is still in your lap or at your side. Treats do not need to be in your hand. And that's one thing I always say. You want to keep high rates of reinforcement, which is, again, the amount of times you click a treat. So in reality, 8 to 10 click treats in a minute is the average. That's a lot of clicking and treating. But again, the more clicks and treats you give, the more information the learner gets. So I'm skipping these videos because these were more or less just examples of how we can teach humans to do the same exact things. And I think it's, and again, if I can get you guys a copy of the slides, you guys are welcome to watch them on your own. It's just, they did a good job of saying, like, and I love watching people do the clicker game. So you have somebody be the trainer and somebody else is the animal. And again, then you essentially think of a behavior you want them to do and you clicker train them. And it's fun because it puts you in the seat of the learner and how important getting feedback is. So the biggest thing I want you guys to take away today, if I have to fly through this stuff, is reinforcing behavior you like. So again, I could sit here and I can go through showing you guys how to teach a loose leash walk, and I can teach you guys how to do a sit and a hand target and all this stuff. But those are things that you're going to work on in training sessions. I want these animals in the shelter, and it just, I think, as much as you do, how do they live in the human world? So that's where I want us to change our thinking and be more mindful and think about what our animals are doing correctly. So reinforce the behavior you like. Maybe everybody wears a treat pouch, and anytime you're going to have your hands on an animal, that's what you have to remember. What do I like? What do I want the animal to do? And maybe that's how they eat portions of their diet every day. Volunteers they have to go through a specific training if they're going to take them out and go do walks. Like, these are things that we can start to implement. Again, I know time, trust me, I get it. I totally understand with timing and things like that, but it is just something I want you guys to think about and trying to add in. So again, Laura Monaco Torelli I consider her a colleague. She's fantastic. She's Karen Pryor faculty member. She speaks. She has a lot with cooperative care, and she worked at Shadow Aquarium for years with Ken Ramirez. But she talks a little bit here about using capturing, and that's exactly what we're doing. So again, I want you guys to be clicking and reinforcing behavior that the animal's doing that you enjoy. So quiet and calm behavior when walking by cages. So again, if you walk by a cage and it's a dog that normally barks and he just didn't bark at you that one time, even if you just do a and reach in your treat pouch, toss a treat. Simple as that. Click treat for any positive responses to cute behaviors. So if you ask them to sit, if you ask them to do anything and they do it, click food or click and praise. I would much prefer you do click food, click even play if the animal's interested. But
Rachel,
click treat.
I'm sorry to interrupt. But
I'm done.
fine.
I know.
If you can squeak in a couple quick minutes, then yes, but otherwise everyone has to get to
No,
the
I
next
know,
session.
I get it. I get it. No, I totally understand. I want to put up this slide just so you guys can take a peek. These are some different resources, and I'm going to make sure, is there a way that I can give these guys the slides, a copy of that?
Absolutely. So you can either email Jamie or Alexis, and they will show you how to get all of this stuff posted in the WOVA app for all attendees to access it.
Perfect. Because then guys, you guys are welcome to kind of look through some of the videos and stuff that I had posted. But definitely, if you want, it's on YouTube. Laura Monaco Torelli has a thing on capturing, and it's with her dog Santino, and she does a great job at explaining what you're looking for. And then these are a lot of good resources for you guys to look at. But this is also my email. So again, you guys are always welcome to reach out at this specific email with any questions or concerns you guys might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. Very informative.
You are
Thank you
so
so
welcome.
much.
And again, I'm
Go ahead.
happy to, again, please reach out with any other questions you have.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
very
you,
welcome.
Rachel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.